Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of AZ Update. I'm your host, Anthony Bartolo, and I'm super excited to be joined today by my co-host, Sarah Lean. Sarah Lean, say hi to everybody.
Hey everybody.
Sarah, so awesome to have you on the show. We've been changing hosts every week, but I've been super excited to have you on the show just because your energy and passion for helping those in the IT pro world is so awesome. You've actually done a quick project with the schools, a lot of kids going back to school in 2 weeks' time. And my understanding is that you've actually done something in terms of the curriculum. Do you want to share really quick?
Yeah, so I've been a STEM ambassador, which stands for Science, Technology, Engineering and Maths ambassador for about 2 years now, and I was invited this week to record a video about cloud computing, working at Microsoft, and my career and how it's changed over the years that I've been in it. And actually that video is going to be used in the schools down in England as part of their computing curriculum. So I didn't know that before I started filming the video, so it's pretty cool, and I'm actually super stoked to be encouraging that next generation, because let's face it, as much as we have to evangelize to the current techies, we need to encourage that next generation along as well. And also as IT pros, right, a lot of the curriculum is forced down towards the developer route, but that's not the only route in IT. So I really like talking to the kids about how they can get involved in the IT pro or the infrastructure side of computing as well.
So what was like the words of advice that you were giving to the kids? Like, were you sharing resources, sharing career tips? What was the main message you were sharing?
So it was about trying to tell them what cloud computing actually is, because let's face it, kids use a lot of what cloud computing is, right? They're OneDrive or Twitter and stuff like that. That's all on the cloud nowadays, but they don't actually know how it is and how you actually use that. And another job's about to actually create all of these resources. So I was telling them about that, how I got into IT and the route that I took, and talking them about how you don't actually need to go to university to necessarily get into computing, and mentioning some of the IT apprenticeships that they could look into in the UK as well.
So, and that's interesting, right? Like, we actually talked about this off air prior to today in regards to our career paths. Like, I started as a mechanic and ended up in IT. And what was your path that you took?
So I was heading to be a primary school teacher, which is like little kids in Scotland, so anybody under the age of kind of 10. That's what I was aiming to do. And then I actually discovered that I enjoyed helping friends and family, fixing computing problems and setting all of that up for them, and totally changed my career at the last minute. So I think I was about 17, Anthony, when I decided that I was going to go to university and actually study computing and get a computing degree. So I went down that kind of educational route to get into computing.
And what's awesome is now you've come full circle, because in essence, you're sharing your knowledge with the world just like a teacher would in terms of a classroom. Just your classroom, is much bigger than just the primary students, right?
Yep, I know, it's totally awesome. I think very much the cloud advocate role that we do is a bit like a teacher's role. So yeah, I do get best of both worlds as well now.
All right, let's get started with the news. To continue on the theme of education, our first news this morning has to do with the Windows 10 update. So what's actually going to occur is that there's been an ask from the community to keep providing the security updates for Windows 10 version 1803. In the case of the pandemic that we're in right now, it is important that the schools keep functioning in terms of the kids. A lot of kids are going back to school in 2 weeks, if not have gone back to school already. A lot of the school systems still operate on Windows 10 version 1803. And so there's been a big ask in terms of, can you extend support? Because support for 1803 was supposed to end in November 10th, 2020 of this year, and has now been extended to May 11th, again, based upon the requests of those that are managing these systems in the school boards and other factions as well, but predominantly in the schools. This is, the important piece in terms of why we say it is so important to provide your feedback in terms of the services that Microsoft offers, because yes, Microsoft is listening. They understand, especially in the current situation we are in right now with human malware, the ability to adhere to what the, audience or what your needs are in respect to the services that you provide to your students or to your businesses or what have you, to ensure that everything stays functional and there is no disruption in service. So Sarah, what do you think in terms of this? It does provide longevity to 1803 in terms of version of Windows. There are some functions and features that obviously 1803 won't have that the later versions will, but at least the security updates will continue on and the schools will continue functioning, especially in the fact that a lot of people have gone digital to ensure that quality still continues on with their learning.
Yep, it's great to see us pivoting as well for our customers' needs and not just sticking to the original date and being able to move that so as that we can be flexible with them. So yeah, it's like you said, it's really good. Remember to give your feedback to us so that we can do these kind of things for you.
Perfect. So next up, Sarah.
So I want to talk about something that has went generally available for Azure Migrate. So we now have the ability and generally available to assess your physical servers, servers that live in other clouds like AWS or GCP, and actually look at what they would look like if you were to bring them into Azure. Now, this is a feature I think we announced at Ignite last year, so it's been around for a while, but it's now generally available, which means it's there for production workloads. And it's actually quite timely because I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago I actually did a kind of blog series about this, about how you can actually migrate your virtual machines away from AWS. I think a lot of people get a bit confused around this feature within Azure Migrate because we often focus down on the physical assessment. But what that physical assessment capability actually means is looking at servers where you don't have that hypervisor level available to you. So yes, it's great for physical servers when we have that tin still available in our data centers. But if you host a virtual machine in AWS, you don't have that virtualization layer that you can look at to get the assessment data. Or even we've got some customers who've used this because they have their virtual machines inside a managed host provider's data center and they don't get to see that virtualization layer. They don't get to see the hypervisor host. So they treat that as a physical machine, and Azure Migrate can pull out the data to assess it as well. So it's pretty cool that that's now went generally available. And if you do want to see it in action, the video is on this YouTube channel, so you can see how you can actually use that as well.
Now, your blog post is on itopstock.com, so if you want to check out the blog post, it's there. We understand that not everybody runs everything on one cloud, so we know that there is shifting of services from one cloud to another. And what's great about this tool is the assessment and now the ability to understand at the hypervisor level what services are currently running, what services are best in tune to the clouds that they're implemented in. It could be a geo thing, it could be a services thing. There's so many different factions in terms of this ability to do the assessment to ensure, in terms of an organization's deployment of cloud or utilization of cloud, it's putting their best foot forward in terms of capitalizing on the resources that they have made available.
Yep, and I'm a super advocate for actually doing that assessment. Often people want to migrate their estates into Azure and they kind of jump ahead and they just migrate in and then they hit some issues. So I'm a big advocate of spending that time on assessing, understanding what you already have, looking at how many cores you use, how much memory you use, whether you need all of that, because let's face it, we've all oversized stuff on-prem before, and just doing that kind of discovery of what's happening within your environment so as you know what the full picture is, and that way you can actually start to look at talking about, are we going down the IaaS route or are we going PaaS? Because sometimes people think they pick their strategy first, so they say we're going PaaS, and then they get halfway down that migration strategy and they realize that there's an application somewhere that doesn't actually go to PaaS. It needs that GUI interface, it needs that traditional operating system. So if you do the discovery, you're not going to get caught out with some of that. So yeah, using something like Azure Migrate to do that assessment is super important, and it can really help with your migration as well.
Now, when we were on the Microsoft Ignite tour, there was a lot of people that were coming into the general area to talk about, currently on premises, they want to move to the cloud, and what light switch do we flick to move to the cloud, right? And I don't know if you've heard this. I heard this a lot while I was at the show, and it's to your point, right? You have to understand, what do you have in terms of your infrastructure, the applications that you run, the services that you manage, in respect to that migration. How much do you think does this tool enable the IT professionals to have that conversational piece with the business unit that just, we want to move to the cloud, we want to move to the cloud quickly. They don't understand the aspects of the technology that's required to do this move. Does this also provide that, conversation that IT professionals can have with the business unit in terms of what is needed and what is entailed for that cloud migration?
I think the great thing about Azure Migrate is it gives the techies something to present to those business decision makers. So Azure Migrate gives you information about how much compute you need, how much storage you need, and it gives you that cost as well, right? So you can take that and you can take that hard figure and then show that to your decision makers. Now, I always say to my customers, don't take that figure as what it actually is going to look like when you move to Azure, because there's always a little bit of a play, but it gives you that great bit of evidence and it helps you do that. So it's not a lot of manual work that you have to do to gather all of that data. Azure Migrate helps you and it does all of that calculations for you. So it's a great time saver and it does give you that hard evidence that you can take to your business decision makers as well.
Also an opportunity, when moving to the cloud, what services can you move forward with in terms of your technology, evolution or services evolution that you're doing on behalf of the organization. It's not just enough to do a lift and shift to the cloud. Where are you going? What are you trying to accomplish in terms of that lift and shift? And what is the next step that could be enabled in the cloud that you couldn't do on premises before?
Yep, and I think there's a tool built into Azure Migrate called the Database Migration Assistant, which is really awesome for when you're looking at your SQL databases or even some of your other databases as well. And it can actually compare it against the different cloud services that we offer, because I think there's about 3 or 4 options if you want to move your SQL databases into Azure. So it tells you which ones are most appropriate depending on how you've got that on-prem server configured. So yeah, there's some great insights in Azure Migrate on how you can move forward and can help you with all of that decision making as well.
So let's continue on. Sarah, when was the last time you filled out a form? Did you, at a contest or a government form, or it's been a while?
Oh. Yeah, it's probably been a while actually.
It's been a while. Most of the times it's digitalized now, right? We're in an area where it's digitalized. How about expenses when you have to capture a receipt and all that? I know it's such a fun time to do those.
That was always a fun time when I was traveling. Yep.
So what's been enhanced now in terms of cognitive services is a better form recognizer has been made available as a template. So what that means is in incorporating into your solutions and your services, if there's a requirement to read written text, forms that are filled out by your customers or by your employees that you support, the ability now is made in template format that can be called up as an API to look at said form and have an understanding of what the form, check boxes, different languages. So it's not just in English, it's in Spanish and it's in German as well. The ability to recognize the objects inside of the form. Also, the ability to recognize business cards and the ability to recognize receipts. And that's a big one for us because we go through this, exercise where we have to take pictures of our receipts, when we're interacting with all of you and when we're doing our expenses, and then we have to manually input them in. So this solution in terms of cognitive services now has the ability to do this automatically and capture the figures and capture the text and understand what it's actually capturing so that when you're submitting it into an application into specific fields, it's doing this on your behalf and there's no more manual process. Now, this isn't new. This is something, it's been around for a while, but what's new in this respect is it being added into cognitive services. Prior to, the solution was used to recognize objects, like the project that we did with the drones to identify life jackets in the water and identifying a specific object. What's cool about this is because you're incorporating it into this full suite of cognitive services, it's seamless in terms of going from recognizing life jackets to recognizing receipts to on and on. So the possibilities in terms of this is endless. So Richard Hooper on the chat has come up and as asking a question: Would it be good if it did invoices in other forms? So yes, that's in essence what it's a little bit more than an OCR in terms of understanding, because the fact it's actually understanding the language that's being used as well, German, English, Spanish, and what have you. The ability to then translate. So if I pre-programmed the cognitive service to understand that this is the data and this is the data type on the said form, the ability to pull that automatically, yes, definitely off of an invoice would be something that you could apply this to. Andrew McCullum has also reached out and said fuel receipts for him would be a great advantage to have this solution. Let's actually just see really quickly who's on the forum. So we have Richard Hooper that's out there, Sharon Bennett, good Canadian out there. So is Paul Jensen, another good Canadian. Lots of Canadians on the chat today. Where's all the Scottish people? There's nobody.
We're all working hard, and that's what it is. All working hard.
Love the Canadian love out there. A couple of Scots will come on here later. Hopefully, we'll send a tweet out to them to get them on here. X-Hood, hey, welcome. The X-Hood, he's he or she is new to the program. Always great. If you have any questions, chime in on the chat room itself. Sarah, cognitive services. What do you think in terms of the new inclusions of services?
I think it's actually pretty cool. So I've not done a lot of cognitive services, but recently I sat the AI kind of fundamentals exam, AI 900, and I had to learn a lot about this in order to pass that exam. So I was super excited to hear some of the stuff that we've done, because it probably has been about 2 years since I've probably looked at some of our cognitive services. So the features and functionality is just great. And hopefully we can use some of Form Recognizer to do our receipt processing when we're back traveling again.
When we're back traveling again is the operative word, right? Hopefully that is soon. It's interesting. So you did the exam. I was curious about that. I wanted to ask you about that in terms of the exam. What was your interest in completing the AI exam?
I think partly I want to collect all the fundamentals exams so that I understand a base level of all our features and functionalities. So yeah, I wanted to do that to collect them all, a bit like Pokemon cards back in the day. But yeah, I want to be able to talk to customers when they ask things about like what is Form Recognizer and have a good understanding of it. And I think studying for those fundamentals exams actually gives you that great baseline, even if it's just at the level 100 about what's available. Because yeah, there's like 200 odd services in Azure. We're never going to know all of them in great detail, but if we know a little bit, then we can have the conversations around all of that as well.
No, I'm not a developer, and I think you dabbled in PowerShell, nothing more than that. That's I've done some Python. What's cool about the services that are made available in cognitive services is even if you just dabble with Power Apps, right? So you lightly dabble in Power Apps, and that's a drag and drop type of programming scenario, and the ability to hook in services. So to build out, to Richard's request in terms of a recognition of an invoice in the text, it's not that difficult in regards to creating, let's say, a proof of concept, just to see if this is a solution that you would want to run with using Power Apps. And that's the beauty of what's offered right now. You don't have to be a specific coder to test out your theories. And what I love about services like cognitive services is literally plug and play into any language that you want to build it into, which includes Power Apps, for that availability to, will this work? If we, test out the recognition of an invoice and breaking down of the data that's on that invoice, is that actually a possibility?
Yep, it's we have so many great case studies of what we call citizens developers, someone in a non-IT role coming in and using things like Power Apps to do some cool things for their business. But that's also great for us IT pros that aren't developers who have maybe dabbled in PowerShell, but that is it. So yeah, Power Apps is definitely something that is something pretty cool, I think.
So let's continue on with the news. So you're up next.
Awesome. So I want to talk about a new release of AZ Copy. And for those that haven't used AZ Copy or even heard of it, it's a great command line tool that lets you interact with storage in Azure. So you can push things up into Azure and pull things back down with that command line interface. But what we've seen here in this recent edition of it is some support for things like keeping your access control lists or your ACLs when you're pushing those files up into the Azure storage, which is great for making sure that people don't accidentally access files that they shouldn't be accessing. We've also got support for a preview feature that we've got in Azure Storage, which is called Blob Versioning, not easy to say. So you can actually list the different versions that you have within AZ Copy and then pull them down, delete them, or do something with them. And I'm pretty excited about this. I want to actually dig into it next week and have a look at it, because Blob Versioning is a preview feature in Azure Storage. But like I said, it gives you that ability to have different copies of files, because let's face it, we've all accidentally hit save and completely destroyed the version that we wanted of that file. So Blob Versioning allows us to automatically create different versions of those files, so that if we do delete something accidentally or completely destroy it by the wrong save command or whatever it may be, we can pull that version back and save ourselves some work for having to recreate it. So I think it's pretty cool that that's all been surfaced up in AZ Copy. So if you haven't updated it, go and update it and have a play with these, because that's what I'm going to be doing next week as well. Have you used AZ Copy, Anthony, in your work?
It's been a long time since I have. I have dabbled in the past. I like the fact that AZ Copy now gives you the ability to do versioning on blob storage, specifically from from an IoT perspective, and we're capturing all this data and it's going directly into unformatted tables into blob storage, the ability to have different sets and different versions of that data pertaining to if we make a change in terms of what data is actually being captured at the edge, or if we're now creating a smart edge and or doing edge computing, and the ability to then, do a version of this is without the smart computing or without the edge computing and this is the results as opposed to the raw data, and do a comparison in regards to said data. That's huge in regards to having that ability to differentiate between the two.
Yep. That's actually pretty cool. I didn't realize you could use Blob Versioning with your IoT stuff, because I'm not an IoT developer. So
well, all it is it's in essence the data it's stored in unformatted tables.
Yeah.
Right. So if we have a version of that and we can create a copy, let's say we want to implement this in a digital twin scenario. So taking that information that we've now copied and feeding it into a virtual model to see what the outcomes would be, and then you can make subtle changes there. In having that versioning, if we make any changes to the raw data, that what happens if this happens, we still have the other data that we can go back to. That's awesome to have that capability.
Oh, that sounds pretty cool. But yeah, like I say, I'm going to actually do some playing with this next week, and hopefully do some blog posts and show how you can actually use this, because I think it's pretty cool. I want to see how you use these different flags with the new AZ copy. So I'm looking forward to that.
Definitely looking forward to the blog post. Really quickly, I wanted to call out, we have Scotland represented on the chat room right now. So we have Ray Groundwater has come out from Scotland.
Hello,
hey,
Ray.
How's it going? He's in from Orkney. Am I saying it right?
Yeah. Orkney, yep, that's way up in the north. That's on an island up in Scotland. I actually worked with Ray to do an Office 365 migration for his organisation. So
that's awesome.
It's pretty cool. That seems like a while ago.
A while ago. Apparently, we have Australians on the Twitch stream. So we're not just on YouTube. We're also on Microsoft Learn. So catch us there, aka.ms/MSLearnTV. And we're also streaming on Facebook, and we're streaming on Twitch. So we're on 4 channels right now, which is pretty awesome.
Awesome.
The technology of being at home and working from home, right? And the ability to reach out through different streams, which is awesome. So really cool. And we're tracking all the chat streams on all the platforms right now. So if you have any questions, feel free to chime on in. Andrew McCullum and Richard Hooper are talking about Power Apps / Logic Apps right now for Azure monitoring, which is pretty cool. And they're using those types of solutions to automate the responses in regards to what gets flagged in monitoring, which is pretty awesome.
Which actually leads me into my suggestion for the Microsoft Learn module of the week, actually.
Yep.
And it's about actually incident response with some of the learning from Azure. And coming from a support background, I know how important it is to actually monitor things and not get caught out when something goes wrong, because no one likes to get that 2 a.m. phone call from their manager shouting at them because something's went wrong. So incident monitoring is absolutely something you should be implementing, and you shouldn't forget if you're doing that migration story, because you've probably got it monitored on-prem. So when you move that up into the cloud, you need to make sure you're still monitoring it. So this Microsoft Learn module actually takes you through some of the features and functionalities that we have available to set up that monitoring, and actually almost auto heal some of those incidents, right? If a service has stopped and you get an alert, you could maybe trigger something to kick off a runbook or a logic app that actually restarts that service, so that you don't have to get out your bed and do that yourself. So that's pretty cool, that module. So definitely check it out if incident response is something that you have to do in your day-to-day job.
And what I love about Microsoft Learn, as I've said before, is the ability to have these hands-on labs that you can go forth and do, the steps to implement incident response alerting on Azure, and do it in a sandbox, which allows you for free to test out this type of functionality, run through the paces, capture the notes in terms of the steps that you did to accomplish that, and then once you close it out, it wipes everything clean. Again, you're not charged for anything; it's completely free. I learn by hands-on. That's how I learn. So this for me is an awesome resource, and it's awesome that you're able to share that.
Yep, I'm a hands-on learner as well, so I love this. I love being able to do this out with my normal Azure subscriptions and just play about with things and work through them, and have them actually work properly as well. So it's pretty cool.
So let's talk about upcoming events. So first, we'll throw to our Patch and Switch show. As you know, they are going weekly, or sorry, every fortnight. So it's every 2 weeks that they're sharing their Patch and Switch show stream. There is no stream this week. We were hoping that they were going to do a random access streaming. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. But if you do want to check out the podcasts, apparently Rick Claus has fallen behind. They're on April the 3rd. We are in August, if I'm not mistaken. So Rick, you have a couple of items to take care of here on your site. But there is the podcast that you can watch and listen into, which are always funny and always provide a lot of information in terms of tech and what's going on. Next up, Microsoft Ignite, September 22nd to the 24th. Definitely sign up and register. This is going to be an online event. Sarah, yourself, myself, producer Pierre, and a lot of us will also be participating in sharing of information and, being on behind the scenes. So we will be in a lot of the chat rooms, capturing information, discussing, with the masses, listening in terms of what's going on in your world, in terms of what, we're trying to accomplish and how we can help. Sarah, last year we were in person. It was awesome. We had a lot of, in-person conversations with a lot of our customers, a lot of our audiences. What are you looking forward to this year at Ignite?
I think at Ignite, the announcements that we often make around some of our products is what I always look forward to, as well as the networking with different people. But yeah, I'm cool to see what we're doing with some products. I have been talking to some of the product teams and know there's some cool stuff on the way. Can't tell you what, but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where we're going with some of our products as well this year.
I think the whole aspect of digital format also allows us to have that wider conversation point with people from around the world. A lot of people, to fly into, this year was going to be in New Orleans. So to fly in is a bit of a challenge and there's a lot of a cost. So the ability to have everybody digitally connect and digitally available will spark a lot of conversations. And my hope is that there's a lot of cross conversations that occur, from Australia to Scotland, to Canada, to the United States, to Italy, to France, to Malta, wherever that may be, and have that ability to connect with a lot of people's ideas on how they accomplish tasks using technology, which is really cool.
Yep, and with it being digital, we don't have to be walking miles every day like we did last year. I know Shannon and I met last year and we're complaining about how sore our feet were from all the walking that we've done. So being digitally, it will help us with keeping a bit less fit.
And we're missing out on the Florida humidity, which is another bonus. Oh, yes. So to continue on in terms of events, in 2 weeks' time, we have the IoT Innovatech, I always say it wrong, Innovatech conference that's happening September 7th to the 10th. We'll be participating in that as well in a couple of the keynotes. That is LATAM's largest IoT conference. It was originally supposed to take place in July in Chile. They've also moved to a digital format in the whole aspect of the human malware situation that we're in right now. So again, worldwide participation is most welcome to come on in here and register for the event. And that is it for our show. Sarah, if somebody wants to get a hold of you on the socials, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
You can find me as Techie Lass on Twitter or my blog or whatever. If you have a look at Techie Lass, that's me.
So you have your blog, techie, your blog, techielass.com. Yep. You're on Twitter on @techielass. You also have YouTube. You also have your own video series that you've been doing for 1 year. By the way, congratulations. 1 year is a huge accomplishment. We're definitely trying to do that with AZ Update. So you're available throughout all those platforms.
Yep.
And hopefully we'll have you on the show again. If you want to reach out to producer Pierre, he can be found on the Twitters @WiredCanuck. And if you want to reach out to me, you can find me on the Twitters @WirelessLife. Sarah, thank you very much again for joining us on the show today. Everybody, have a great weekend. Just a quick note, next Friday, we will not have the show next Friday because it's Labor Day weekend, and we're going to give everybody a break from us. So enjoy your 2 upcoming weekends. We will be back on September 11th, back with the normal time at 10 a.m. Eastern time. Check your local time zones for the other times. Everybody, have a great holiday, and we'll see you soon.
Cheers.